I'd like to introduce our presenter, Ray Lugo. Ray has been an instructor with Global Knowledge since 2001. He has taught several telecom courses under Nortel and Avaya, went on to delivering networking classes, which led to certifying, instructing in CompTIA Plus, Net Plus, SEC Plus, CySa Plus. He is also certified to teach EC Council's CEH. And finally, he delivers the Global Knowledge Developed Cybersecurity Foundations course with this webinar using one of its models as a basis. So with all that, Ray, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Brad. Well, good morning or maybe good evening, depending on your time zone factors. Today, I will be going through trends in cybersecurity, which is actually a section from our Cybersecurity Foundations course. Hello. So this is the Module 16, Trends in Cybersecurity, and we're going to cover here cybersecurity design constraints. And don't worry, you didn't miss 15 modules. We actually starting in Module 16 here, okay? So we're covering cybersecurity design constraints, driving forces, how connected are you? How reliant on connectivity are you? Identity management, cybersecurity standards, and obtaining cybersecurity training. So the first reference up is cybersecurity design constraints, right? Could constrain an organization, right, to apply and have the correct cybersecurity measures. And so it indicates, constraints that may prevent having the ideal IT or IT security solutions budget could factor in. Because sometimes it's a hard sell. One may say, we should invest in this, and someone says, well, what is the cost of that, right? Solution to protect us. And, it might be in a price range where the budget, right, doesn't call for it at the moment. But, I always tell people you have to consider what could be the cost effect of not investing right up front to protect yourselves thoroughly. That could be even more costly, right? If your systems are breached, and depending on the nature of the breach, that could cost, clients, customer satisfaction. It could be maybe regulation penalties, right? So that could even be a bigger cost. So one should always consider, right? But again, every organization has to look at their budget, right? And what they could provide at that moment, but it should be, at least substantial to meet one's budget, right? To secure one's thoroughly. It refers to regulations as well. Again, depending on the organizations and the type of data that you handle, may be a factor of regulations, especially if you're, not protecting the data thoroughly. That always factors in, what kind of data you handle. Maybe it's medical records data, financial records data, student records data, right? There's different regulations that apply for that and the measures that have to be taken to make sure one confines to those regulations. Technical capabilities, what's present currently in the technology. An example, there's solutions now that use artificial intelligence to provide cybersecurity. Well, those solutions weren't always available, right? It's a fairly new solution as the AI technology improves, but that's the factor. As time goes on, one should always investigate, right? What technical solutions are available now that we may be able to utilize efficiently and effectively and provide in our environment. So one should always do constant research in that regard, right? And keep abreast of what new technology solutions are available in cybersecurity that you might find and utilize in one's own environment. Then it points out design capacities and limitations as well. When it comes to the materials and the equipment purchase, compatibility, especially that, there's network environments and making sure, and, whatever system that houses sensitive data, making sure, solutions are compatible, right, to the network environment, to the systems that house the data, the various process that should be on the go. And, process should also come from policies, dictating the process that should be taken, right, to secure one's environment with cybersecurity measures. Staff capabilities has to be considered too. Organizations, you could have your own in-house staff. As a matter of fact, that's become very common nowadays. But that's could factor in. Not every organization may have, for example, their own incident response team, right? That could handle and address incidents as they occur. So they may offload that to a third party, right? That comes in and does the incident response. I've had actually students with that scenario. You know, they come from different environments. They might have shorter staff in their environments, but they at least, you know, have third parties, right, that could able to perform the incident response and forensic investigation process, right, when their incidents occur. But you got to prepare for that. You got to think that way. It shouldn't be a spur of the moment decision like, oh, well, who's going to handle this now that this incident is happening, right? We didn't train anyone internally and we don't have anyone else, right? And we got to call someone now. That should already be prepared. You know, preparation is vital, right? Make sure you're prepared before any incident happens. There's even, it mentions political issues. That's more about privacy. But every organization has a right to monitor their environments. But the users might see that as a privacy violations, but as long as that is outlined in policies again, and you make the users aware, look, for our security measures, we got to look at email correspondence. We got to look at text correspondence, right? Instant messaging, maybe even listen in on calls and so forth. So, you know, that all factors in. So someone doesn't feel, right, there's a political issue, you're violating my privacy, right? That shouldn't be done. If it's outlined in policy and everybody's made aware, they shouldn't feel that way, okay? But these are, you know, the potential constraints that can occur to inhibit, right, the proper security measures being put in place. I see, you know, people from various areas of the world. Welcome all. We have the cyber driving forces. You know, what motivates these attackers? At the bottom there goes the notorious black hat, right? We use that term in cybersecurity to describe the malicious attackers, right? We call them black hats. Black hat, right? He's at the bottom there. They use other terms too there besides the black hat, you know, cyber terrorism, cyber criminal. He looks like he's wearing, well, he's at least wearing a hat, right? But the black hats are malicious perpetrators. And they have a lot of motivation nowadays, considering how connected we are, right? Everything is pretty much connected to the internet now. And through that, some of them like to be like rock stars and even say, hey, I'm the one who did this. That, you know, falls in line in the power and prestige factor. Now they're homing in a lot on social media. That's become a big avenue. Like if I'm going to infiltrate an organization like Global Knowledge, I would get on social media to see who's works for Global Knowledge. And then may try to, you know, I would try to make contact with them and strike up, you know, conversation with them all through social media. That's, you know, early on in an attack phase, we call it reconnaissance and footprinting. And in that regard, we could, you know, black hats are now using social media and also to launch attacks. I can't tell you how many times nowadays I see people spreading things through social media, or they click on something and, you know, it spreads to someone else in their contact list, or they spread misinformation nowadays through social media. That's happening a lot now. You know, this information goes out and it's not necessarily true, and, you know, someone doesn't fact check, right? And, you know, things are occurring that way through social media now, sometimes intentionally, right, to send out that type of information. And, you know, consider, like they're mentioning education. Yeah, everything is online now. Well, especially now, right, where so many schools had to go remote learning. So that's become, you know, and a lot of it is using our platform, Zoom. They already came out almost as soon as it happened, like remote learning and remote thing, you know, Zoom bombing came out, right, where someone was entering a Zoom session that's not authorized to, not like a public forum, but they were like entering, right, Zoom meetings that was meant to be private. But some people didn't know how to like protect themselves well, like, you know, provide a password, right? And those authorized should know it and should be the only ones that could come in. But even with that, make sure the password's strong enough, right? So someone can't guess it easily and come on in. So, yeah, those all factors in. And the Internet of Things. Almost everything now is attached, right, to the IP network. And so that's another focus of the black hat at this point, because almost everything is attached to the IP network that extends their reach. Those those devices attached to the IP network, the Internet of Things, could literally be used by the black hats to attack other things. And that has happened literally. There's been, the Internet of Things that flood traffic because they were taken over by a black hat and they flood traffic to the website to bring it down. These are things that happen or used depending on what type of device it is, right? Use it to be, to break confidentiality, like maybe it's an IP camera or some sorts, right? And they could view things through it if they infiltrate it. But on the top right, it says the real driving force, yeah, monetary gain. Because everything's so connected and a lot of sensitive information, right, is out there that they could potentially gain access to. And unfortunately, it has occurred, right? And sometimes it's not even under the individual's control. Such as, several years ago, the big Equifax breach that, through that one breach, they were able to acquire half the US citizens' population's PII information, right? Did anyone check when that happened, by the way? If you might have been potentially part of it, they had an option for you to check to see if potentially your info got out there, right? But, they do things like that because identity theft, right? Or of course, hacking into institutions that keep credit card information. I remember a while back, PlayStation Network was hacked into, and people store their credit card information on PlayStation Network. That's was one of their motives, right? So that's usually the real driving factor there, right? If they could gain monetary gains through hacking into systems because of the connectivity of the internet, right? Allows for them to do that. It's gotten to the point where the black hats don't have to be in the same country of the system they're attacking. They could be in a whole other country, literally. And that's a good getaway plan. I said, never mind, getting in a car and driving off. I'm in a whole other country. Catch me if you can. Especially, if there's no Interpol type of relationship between the countries, and complicates it even that much further. Next here, mobile devices. I mean, who doesn't have a mobile device at this point? I mean, it's gotten to the point where, I'll be honest, I started my son early on a mobile device, but I did it under the premise of for security and such. He could, call us if something's happening and such. And also the tracking of it too, right? I could see through the mobile phone where he's at. But the point is like we're all connected now. And that creates new avenues for the black hats to exploit as well. It says, do you ever not carry a cell phone nowadays? Most all of us do, right? It says, how long can you go without checking it? It says, do you have the right to restrict access to your cell phone records? Organizations know that having a mobile device within an organization environment is a risk on itself. Because again, if those, devices are tampered with, or unfortunately, there's insider threats too. Someone from within the organization can use that mobile device for data exfiltration, right? Sending sensitive data to others through the mobile device, or storing it there and taking it with them, or even using the video camera on it and taking pictures and such, right? And sharing it with others. So, mobile devices present a big risk to every organization and every individual now. It says, can the company work for restrict cell phone usage? That's, the point I was just making. Our organization realize how much of a risk that is, right? To allow it into the environment. And depending on the organization will say, no, you can't bring in, right, a mobile device into this environment. And those that do have to monitor thoroughly what's happening with those mobile devices. Especially, is that device secure? Can it be compromised? And what if it is compromised and is attached to the corporate network? That could be the pivot point, right? That the black hat uses to compromise that insecure device. Now it's attached to the corporate network, right? And pivot to other systems from there, right? That creates all kinds of possibilities now. Also, again, the use of social media. Right? It says the killer app for mobile devices, if not the entire internet. Most everyone nowadays is on social media. The only person I know that's not on social media is my dad, but he's 82 years old, so he refuses to learn any new technology and such and apps. I try to get him on, but he doesn't want to do it. But that's all right. I'm okay with that, Dad. I'll call you and stuff like that. But the point is, like, so much on social media, and like I said earlier, one of the earliest attack phases is reconnaissance and footprinting, and black hats are using social media to that advantage. Like if I'm targeting, again, a corporation, I'm going to use social media to do it, because most corporations nowadays have a presence on social media. most every company I see now has a presence on Facebook and Twitter. And so the black hats go home in on that. And a lot of times, again, the employees of that organization may also be on social media and actually list themselves to be. So on their profiles of social media says, I work for Global Knowledge. I think of a site like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is ideal for that. You know, you could go right to LinkedIn and you could do searches on a particular, who works for a particular organization. And if I'm trying to infiltrate that organization or black hat, I'm going to home in on those people. And then again, you know, make casual contact with them. They just think it's, oh, you know, networking, you know, social networking for jobs and such, because that's what a site like LinkedIn does. And so that could factor in there and they could use that to their advantage. And then make casual contact through that, right? They could inbox, say, hey, I see you work for such and such and do this, right? I also work for IT and I do this. And, you know, kind of talk shop, right? Oh, what do you do for in your environment? I do this and this, and we use this system. Do you use that system? Sure. But all the while they're footprinting, right? They're gathering information that the person may be willingly giving up, thinking it's just casual conversation, casual contact, right? Through social media. So that's a big advantage that the black hats now use. Or like I said earlier, just and planning their attacks on social media websites too. I've seen that happen. People go clicking on things and links and such, and that leads them to the attack. And here it says, could you be required to have social media account in the near future? It says, is your social media presence a digital ID part of your background check? I could tell you yes. I've known, you know, friends go through recent job interviews and such, and yeah, their organizations are now questioning that. It says, do you have, right, a social media presence, social media account? I have one friend that that said, you know, and they were honest, they didn't. Well, they had the LinkedIn, but I guess, you know, I guess that could account for social media, but they didn't have anything else. They didn't have Facebook or Twitter, and they were very skeptical when they said that. They wanted to really know, right, if they do or not. Says, what if on a job application you say to them, well, like I said, what happened to my friend, they were very skeptical. They thought they were lying, but they weren't. You know, they only had LinkedIn. You know, some people don't like social media and they won't have it, right? But it'll be interesting, yeah, you know, yeah, maybe organizations might be at least requiring their users, right, to join their version of a, you know, their presence on social media. Perhaps that's another factor. And, you know, that's again, something that the black hat could home in on. We have the use of Internet of Things. As I was saying earlier, right? Most everything now is IP connected, literally. It says, you know, the IoT device presents security problems for business consumers. Is each device potentially a gateway into the network? Yeah, it's considered an IP network. And you know, these Internet of Things devices allows for remote connectivity, right? Remote connectivity, remote monitoring and administration, depending on the device, like if it's a security camera. And that's the irony, you know, and the unfortunate irony. It's like a double-edged sword. So someone sets up a security camera to secure their home, to know when someone's approaching their home. But at the same time, if that camera is hacked into, someone could be looking into your home. As a matter of fact, that's happened pretty recently with several IP cameras like the Nest and the Ring, and people have infiltrated them. Usually it's because people don't know how to secure them thoroughly. You know, they leave weak defaults or weak passwords. They don't invoke two-factor authentication, right? And it leads to those issues. I have the Ring in my home, actually, right, to know when someone's approaching the door. And I remember not too long ago, it was mentioned, you know, family had it in their children's room, and someone infiltrated it and started talking to the child through it, saying there was Santa Claus and everything. But that's because they didn't secure it thoroughly. It had just one password and it wasn't that strong. I remember because of that, and it was well publicized in the news. Anyone remember that incident by chance when it happened with the Ring? It was in the news. It was a little girl's room, and the person started saying, I'm Santa Claus to it. Then Rings took action. At that point, Ring took action. They started, because I remember I started getting the message and say, hey, turn on your two-factor authentication. You make sure you got a strong password. Now, I had already done that myself. without Ring telling me, right? Because of course I know the importance of securing these IoT devices, right? But that's the point. A lot of people don't know what to do, right, to secure these IoT devices. That's why the vendors of these devices have to be more diligent. But that comes with, you know, applying standards as time goes on, right? Standards are needed to enforce, right, more security on these type of IoT devices. Like they're showing, you know, a TV there. A lot of these TVs now have cameras built into them. It could be your TV watching you. I actually seen a demonstration where the person, you know, activated the Skype app running on the TV, but put it in a mode that the person couldn't tell the camera was active, right? And they were watching. When the person says, what can I do against that? I said, well, if you're not using the camera, put tape over it, right? So even if someone activates, it won't be viewed. But nowadays, it's gotten to the point where you have to consider better protection in your home networks. And you know, they sell firewalls for home environments now. A lot of routers have built-in firewalls, but I wouldn't, they're doing mostly basic packet filtering level firewalls, which is basic protection, but they have more inclusive protective firewalls nowadays that are firewalls that do the routing. And truly, if you get into a lot of IoT and a lot of home automation and such, even in the industrial areas and organization areas, well, those areas tend to have, you know, firewall protection as is, but not that many people, right, have it in the home environment. And one should really consider that. You could even just go to Amazon and search, you know, firewalls for home. And it'll come up with a listing of several vendors that now sell firewall products, right, to secure your home environment even better. And as time goes on and people use more of these devices, one should consider that, you know, better protection at the home level. Now here's another big concern, right? Those areas are industrial control systems and SCADA, right? The supervisory control and data acquisition systems. Organizations that deal with electrical grids, water supply pipelines. You know, unfortunately, yeah, these become targets. Sometimes it's, you know, nation sponsor scenario, right? One nation infiltrating another nation's, you know, industrial control systems, you know, intently, like, you know, trial runs to see what they could potentially do if they need to, you know, disrupt services. They call that, there's a term, cyber warfare, and that's part of it, right? If one nation goes into another nation, electrical grid, water, and disrupt those operations, that's going to cause a lot of havoc in those areas. But it doesn't necessarily have to be from one nation to the other. You know, there's cyber terrorism, and where the person could hold things for ransom, right, for monetary gain on their end, right? They say, oh, I took over your systems and I won't release control unless you pay me in Bitcoin, right? That could happen too. So, you know, that factors in. It could be, you know, from one nation to another nation, or it could be just a cyber terrorist, right, for monetary gain. And so those environments are very concerned. Of course, they have to take the appropriate security measures, right? Implement their firewall technologies, their intrusion detection systems, keep everything up to date, provide protection for individual systems like virus, host intrusion detection, right? Turn down the services that are not needed to run, do proper network segmentation, isolate the very sensitive systems to their own zones and networks, right? These are the strategies that have to be invoked. And there's standards that help with that are published. You know, handbooks and guides like NIST provides standards for the government levels, and other organizations provide security frameworks for SCADA systems that could be utilized. That gives outlines, right, on how to protect thoroughly an industrial control and supervisory control and data acquisition, right, environment. So here, the needs for standards. There's a lack of security standards, especially for IoT. Says leaves networks vulnerable, but there are standards that are being developed. One such standard is the Open Trust Protocol. It says designed to provide secure architecture and code management to protect connected devices. It's currently an internet draft from the Internet Engineering Task Force. There's information though, you could go to that website. But yeah, standardization, once things are standardized, then it enforces more security measures right up front. Like I said, you know, that ring that was infiltrated that came out and used, it was done so because the people didn't know initially how to secure it thoroughly. And then, you know, Ring was reactive to that and, you know, sent out the message, turn on your multi-factor, change your passwords. But, you know, with these standards, that should be invoked right up front, right? It shouldn't be an afterthought or, you know, a reactive. It should be more proactive, right, in securing these attached devices to the IP network. And standards like OTRP are centered to do that. Then when it comes to new technologies as well, it says as new technologies are developed, will security be priority? It has to be, right? And again, most of all these new technologies are IP based now and attached to the IP networks to allow, right, that again, remote administration and remote control. And it's almost in every facet as well, besides the IoT, now even in cars, right? Cars are very connected nowadays. When a car, you know, you have a hotspot, literally, right? Everyone connects to and go out to the internet. But the same, you know, connectivity in those technologies that allows people to go out to the internet, well, that extends the black hat's reach at that point too, right? And they could come in through those connections as well and access, right, those areas, which include the newer vehicles now, right? That creates new possibilities for the black hat. Says, does cyber law keep up with new technologies? They're going to have to, but you know, technology is ever changing. And again, more and more things are getting attached to the IP network that weren't historically attached before. It says, will you have the right or power to restrict access to and storage of your personal information? Could even your medical history become part of a background check? That's a possibility. It says, who will own the internet in the future? But, you know, all that has to be taken in consideration, and you have to create a layer of defense. It says balancing cyber attacks and making sure you have the proper measures right in place. Like I said, even starting in the home environment now, people truly need to consider, right, what better protection they could have attached to their internet connection than just your standard router providing basic firewall protection. Right? You have to think as like the enterprise level. Enterprise should have, again, right, the firewall technology, intrusion detection technology, and with all this new technology and you know, IP-based connectivity, one should provide their own personal protection, right, for your own personal home environments as well. And even protect at the you know, mobile device level too. Although, you know, Apple kind of says, well, as long as we keep everything up to date in iOS, right, that secures you. Android devices allow for you to install apps for security as well. You know, the anti-malware solutions, even firewall solutions. And one should truly consider that. Especially too, again, how connected are you? You know, we're constantly connected, whether it's through the cellular provider network or jumping on Wi-Fi's. And now it's become so common that everyone would jump on a public Wi-Fi. If you're going to do that, you need to thoroughly protect yourself, like invest in a VPN solution, virtual private network, right? How many of you already have VPN going on your mobile phone by chance? A lot of people don't consider that, and they'll go on to a Wi-Fi network and they think they're secure, right? But they, you know, you might not be. You might be on the attacker's rogue access point or evil twin, right? So, you know, just investing in some, you know, for you to use, others you may have to pay for, but it's a good investment, right? To secure yourself even further, just in case you get on someone's rogue access point, right? Truly, if you can, staying on the cellular side will be better, but that's not always possible. You know, you could go into an area that has low cellular signal, and so that's why you want to jump on the Wi-Fi, right? But then, you know, I would invest in a VPN solution. Like in my phone, I use NordVPN, N-O-R-D, to protect my connections if I ever jump on a Wi-Fi. So here it says, you know, how connected are you? It says most people spend time on the internet just about every day, right? Yeah, it's true. I do everything on the internet now, right? We're constantly connected. And again, that creates more possibilities for the black hat, right, to infiltrate. Because, you know, how many people do you know who don't use the internet? Again, my 82-year-old dad. And it's not that I don't think he could use it, but, you know, he's kind of old school in that, and he'd rather not try it. You know, if he could pick up a phone and call me, he's fine with that, right? I try to text him. He'll try to text back and stuff, but, you know, he's not really into it. But my 19-year-old teenage son, he doesn't know what it is to be without the internet. He grew up on it, right? I didn't grow up on the internet. I'm 52 years old, so it was later on in life that, but now I can't picture not having the internet too, right? We're so relying on it. Well, put it this way, if I have the internet, I wouldn't be doing this webinar right now, and I wouldn't be teaching from home either. So we're highly reliant, but because of that, you know, rely on the internet, we're so highly reliant now, that creates more possibility for the black hat, right? Everybody's constantly connected, and they know that, and they use that to their advantage. Here it says, you know, how many computers are in your home today? Most everything is computerized, and most everything is computerized to the point where, again, it's allowed to be attached to the IP network. So it's not just, you know, that is running a computer, but especially if it's running in and allowed to be attached to the IP network, right? That creates another possibility. And if that device could be reached from the outside, even more. So, you know, that's, you know, how reliant are you? Just how will you buy things? Your electronic payments aren't working. How much cash? Yeah, a lot of people have to think that way. What if that connectivity goes away? How will you operate, right? It says, how will you get more cash? ATM machine's not working, right? It says, how will you pay at the store? Store cash registers may not work, credit cards. How will you get paid? You know, I always think that way before like a natural threat happens, like, you know, if I hear bad weather coming and such, I go to the bank, get out cash and get things that I say, well, if things are not working, right, what can I use besides the technology and the connectivity, right? I plan that way myself personally. And you got to think that way, right? Because if things like that start happening, that creates chaos and impedes people, right, from doing a lot of their everyday functions nowadays. Especially now, again, when corporations say, hey, go work from home, right? We're heavily reliant. If you use internet connectivity at home, that's going to be a big problem nowadays, right? Or even the homeschooling now, right? So we're heavily reliant. Here too, identity management says the more connected we become, the bigger issue identity management becomes, right? You know, all the credentials that we have to keep track of nowadays, right? That factors in. It says option for reducing the number of IDs and passwords. Federated Identity. Yeah, Federated Identity is a implementation that a lot of organizations are utilizing now, where through one set of credentials, the users can access multiple resources and multiple locations and facilities. We even see federated identity happening on the internet. You probably all noticed this. You go to a website and the site offers you an option to log in with Facebook or Gmail and things like that. That's an implementation of federated identity happening on the internet. Through one set of credentials, right, you could access various sites. But you see, that creates the condition that if your Facebook password is weak, if your Gmail password is weak, someone could potentially crack it and use it, right, to enter different sites. So, yeah, it becomes convenient, right? One set of identities to access multiple resources and sites. But if that one set of credentials are weak, that creates more possibilities to the black hat too. Biometrics now are being utilized more and more. Many new modern devices, right, utilize biometrics as well. But even with that, sometimes the biometrics could be compromised too. So that factors in. It says smart cards, radio frequency IDs. You know, this RFID technology has made it like contactless scenarios where, you know, now you could just take your credit card and wave it across the payment reader. You don't have to swipe the magnetic strip or stuff. Although now chip and pin kind of changed that too. But that creates more possibilities for the black hat also, because they know these credit cards contain the RFID chips in them. And literally black hats have come to areas, well, you know, the malicious attackers have come to areas with RFID readers and stand close to people. And if their, you know, cards are not protected, because they do sell sleeves now and hold purses and wallets that dampen the radio frequencies from those cards, so someone can easily scan it. But before people knew about that, that created more possibilities. And it's still, if someone's not aware of it, someone could come scan your car and you might not even know, right? Because it has an RFID chip that they read from it, right? So it creates more possibilities. And it says, you know, power management tools. But yeah, there are tools out there that you know, will track for you. One good strategy, again, never to use the same credentials for different sites and things. Although, like I said, the irony in that is the federated identity, where they say, oh, use this one credential to access all these sites. But if that's the case, just make sure those credentials are strong. That password has to be strong, right? Uppercase, lowercase, more characters in it, not easy dictionary words, right? That could be cracked. People like to use nowadays passphrases, you know, which are longer and easy and harder to crack. Like Mary had a little lamb, fleeces white as snow could be your password. That's called a passphrase. Here it says, you know, how many different systems do you access today at your work or in your personal life, right? Yeah, we're constantly accessing systems. We constantly have to remember credentials. Obviously, you don't want to create a condition that you keep forgetting credentials. You start writing things down or, you know, noting it somewhere where someone else could see and things like that, right? Got to be more secure. And here is a listing of cybersecurity standards and organizations, right, that are promoting standards. You have the National Institute of Standard Technology, European Union Agency for Network and Information Security, European Telecommunications Standard Institute, the International Organization for Standardization, the Internet Engineering Task Force providing standard, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, right? They all provide them. Anyone could freely reference their standards and utilize them to secure one's own environment. And then you have to consider training, right? Cybersecurity training. It says IT training is an important part of the IT budget. Yeah, you know, if people are not aware, if people are not trained thoroughly, that could definitely make them more susceptible to attacks, right? It says what kind of education will be asked for when hiring the future college degrees, certifications, hands-on. Just consider the training of following fields, Linux and Unix, right? Besides servers, but many applications are best on running against Linux and Unix. Virtualization has become a big measure, especially in data centers. IP version 6 is considered more secure than IP version 4, although I don't see organizations rushing to implement 6 on the inside. But I imagine in the near future, that's going to happen more and more. I definitely see IP version 6 already used on the internet and cellular provider networks. Training and networking and vendor-specific training. Like here in Global Knowledge, we provide, you know, Cisco training, Palo Alto training, Sonic Wall training, right? And those are centered in securing the environments to technology. And of course, cybersecurity courses and training, and a lot lead to certification as well. Right? Here's a, you know, kind of an outline of different courses we offer here in Global Knowledge. Some are for informational purposes, but some do lead to certification as well. Okay, we offer many courses that people would take in the cybersecurity arena, and that would lead them to then go on and challenge and get their certifications. Okay. All right, so now questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ray. I appreciate it. And appreciate everyone having these fantastic questions rolling in. So Ray, I'm gonna start at the top here, and we'll go from there. So a question from Sarita, and 2 questions from her, kind of the same flavor. She had a message come through on her Facebook stating that a government rep could take her personal information and get her a $12,000 grant. She said no. Could this have been a social media attack? Then she started having other problems with her cell phone. You know, could her cell phone been attacked as well? And what would you recommend she do about this?
Yeah, that potentially could have been a social engineering tactic there. Like I said, unfortunately, the black hats are using that to their advantage, and they'll put out, you know, information and try to convince someone it's real, especially when they put out things like grants and money you could get for free. But then, you know, how do you get that? You have to give them information. And usually that's what they want. I would not do it directly from the site. I would do more research on that and research the supposedly organization that's saying they're going to grant grants. If they do, they should have a direct website, right, for that purpose, where you should be able to go to and not click on anything on the social media side. Same thing too, that's coming in. Unfortunately, on the mobile side, sometimes that's hard, but you got to be careful because a lot of now, they call it smishing, short message system phishing. They'll send you messages, right, through your text, and they want you to click on something. I wouldn't click on anything in that regard. I'm not saying that they're not all legit, but that's a lot of the tactics. Same thing with the email, right? They could fish you there and make you click on things and then give up sensitive information. But again, if you want to find out true, I would research the organization claiming it. I would not click on anything from the social media. Do more research, see if it's an official organization, and do they officially state it directly on their site. That's the approach I would take.
Awesome. So we have a couple questions here relating to VPN. One is, are you saying we should be connected by VPN on our personal smartphones? And then another question is, can you please provide a little more detail on using VPN to secure internet access? So two separate questions, but both kind of the VPN nature.
Absolutely, yeah. One should consider a VPN solution for your mobile devices. Absolutely. Some newer smartphones are coming with some embedded in. But yeah, like the one I use here, just to give a quick example here, there's one called Nord. There's so many others that you could obtain. But here, NordVPN, best VPN service here. Oh, I'm blocked from policy. But if you could go to there, yeah, I'm on a company issue laptop, I'm blocked. But this is the solution I have. And if you're inclined to go on wireless networks, and who isn't, right? You may be attached to a wireless network and Black Hat is observing all your activity because maybe you're going on their rogue access point that they set up on purpose in that area. When I say access point, that's, how you connect to the wireless. And they can monitor everything you do. But if you launch a VPN, it creates a secure tunnel between you and the internet. And the way it secures it is all your packets will be encrypted. When they're encrypted, that keeps confidentiality. As long as the Black Hat doesn't have the means to crack the encryption, if they capture it, it will be gibberish. It can't read it. And so everything will be confidential. I know, websites, you go there by HPS, but the point is they're capturing the transmission of your wireless from the starting point. And that's what breaks the confidentiality. But if you launch a VPN, it will be all the way from your mobile phone, literally all the way to the internet with a secure tunnel. So even if you're going through their rogue access point, you're still secure. So absolutely invest in a VPN solution for your mobile devices. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Oh, wow, look at this softball question here. What should one do to get into cybersecurity coming from a software engineering background?
Well, start off with getting training, right?
Hey.
Yeah. This particular section that I presented was from one of our courses, and it's an excellent starting course for cybersecurity. It's called the Cybersecurity Foundations course. And this was just one module of it. Trust when I say for the entire 5 days that we deliver it, we'll talk cybersecurity and the different aspects, and we'll do labs too. And that'll be a good starting point to build a foundation and go on for there. Ultimately, what you will want to do to progress to other courses that lead to certifications, right? And once you have those certifications plus a degree in software engineering, that will be great. That would be very marketable.
All right here. So with COVID and contact tracing, folks get calls and messages. Is there any way we can tell if the calls, messages are legit technology-wise?
Boy, that is a good question. I would go back to what I said earlier. Any agencies, especially government or state, should have an official website saying that they're using those measures. Then I would start doing research for your area of who officially should be calling you. I would not call back numbers that you get. It's unfortunate. It could be legitimate, but unfortunately, the Black Hats already have been using COVID. I remember a friend just got a text saying they're providing COVID testing. But in the same message, they said, but you got to pay for the shipping for us to send you the COVID test. But that's what they wanted. They wanted my friend to enter their payment method to pay for the shipping for the COVID test. So you never know what's legitimate or not, unfortunately. But I would start doing research, find the agencies in your area. Like I live in New Jersey. I would find, I would go to the New Jersey website and see who officially should be contacting me for COVID. Or I would call them directly. But I won't trust the numbers you're receiving through your phones. I won't. People could spoof call ID. That's not hard to do nowadays. And so they could pretend to be something they're not. I wouldn't trust it necessarily. It's unfortunate. It could be legitimate, but you got to protect yourself, right? Do your own, search, find the legitimate agencies and contact them through that means.
Okay, so we got some very entertaining questions coming through here.
Okay.
So we got one here. Just now coming off disability, I want to start my own MSP type biz. Can cybersecurity be done remotely?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at some point, yes, there's got to be an access of physical interaction. Like if you're going to do pen testing and things like that, penetration testing, but remote monitoring of things, absolutely that's being done. You know, there's a lot of cloud-based services nowadays. There's, you know, we call it security as a service, cloud-based, where a provider in the cloud is providing, you know, the spam filtering, the firewall. So yeah, things are absolutely being done remotely at this point. And again, you know, we attributed the internet for that, and you know, remote monitoring, remote connectivity is being done a lot, especially now with COVID. I have a friend who's, you know, does cybersecurity for an organization. He's been home a lot, but he can monitor everything from his network connection. He launches a VPN though to do it, right? And then he VPNs in and he monitors everything for remote. So yeah, absolutely you could do that remotely.
Okay, so we have a question here. You mentioned that someone at one point may own the internet. Are discussions on who thus far?
Well, here in the U.S., there's different ISPs, we call them, right? Internet Service Provider. No one particular entity owns the entire internet here in the U.S. But all the ISPs are interconnect with each other. But you know, I can't predict the future. I don't know, it's changed. It's probably going to stay that way to promote, right, competition and such. But I've always heard, you know, the factor of a potential internet kill switch, but that's, you know, at the government level. Like if we're being attacked badly through the internet, I've always heard the government has a means, right, to be able to disconnect us, especially from other countries. So in a sense, you know, the government is involved with that part of it, right? But then each individual organizations must be diligent, right? The Verizons, the AT&Ts, to protect their own infrastructures, right? And many are advertising just that. You know, they say, hey, you get our internet service, we'll provide your cybersecurity measures to protect you, right?
Fantastic. How could someone impersonate a Starbucks guest Wi-Fi? I hope someone's not asking to get instructions how to do it.
Yeah, that's not hard. There's so many tools out there. I don't know if it's gonna let me do a Google search here, because like I said, I'm content filter. but here, let me see if I could. There's a device, for example, it's called a pineapple, and nothing to do with the fruit. Pineapple Wi-Fi. With this, it's made to be a tool. So they brought a Wi-Fi pineapple. With this tool, someone could go into an area. Like, look, there's even a very small one right here. And go into an area like a Starbucks, set it up, and then put the, you know, the SSID is the name you see when you're searching for wireless, and just call it Starbucks Wi-Fi, free, right? And people will think it's the legitimate one and connect to it. But this one is made to monitor everything you do. They could see your window like you're looking at it once you connect to their Pineapple device. And that's just one example of a device that could do that. There's many others. So yeah, that's what they'll do. They go into this public area and set these type of devices to be intrusive. That's why I said you need the VPN to protect yourselves, right? I wouldn't trust anything without a VPN out there.
All right, so we'll take two more questions and we'll
all right,
no here.
Problem. Yeah, good.
All right, so do you need an IT programming background to get into cybersecurity?
No, you know, you don't. But let me say this. My son right now is in his second year. He's going for a 4-year cybersecurity degree. What it falls under is computer science, because you really need to have a good understanding of computers and programming to be effective to thoroughly apply cybersecurity. Some take it to the level where they create their own applications to secure the environment. I've had students in the past that have done that, but they have that background, right? But they say, yeah, we stem from computer science. So, you know, that factors in. It's considered under the computer science umbrella. And that's not necessarily means you always need to know programming, but, you know, sometimes depending on your position in an organization, they may require that.
Fantastic. So last one, and then we'll let you off the hook, Ray. How long will we use IPv6?
Well, let me tell you, IPv6 has been developed to replace 4. The only thing is that's not happening in a rapid fashion right now. Like I said, I've only seen it implemented in the internet, but technically it could be implemented in the intranet, the internal network. But this is just my personal opinion. There's not been a study. The reason I think a lot of people haven't implemented IP6 personally in their LANs and their personal computers on the inside is because it's based on hexadecimal. You know, it's written in hexadecimal base 16. And we look at hexadecimal, it's not as familiar to us when you see H, F, and E. And, you know, but like IP4 is based on decimal, base 10. We could identify that, you know, quite easily. But I think in the future, IP version 6 is more secure. It has IPsec built into it. IP security is to protect the IP packets through encryption and integrity with hashing, where 4 IPsec is an option. And then, you know, IPsec is harder for them to sniff and know the IP range because it's such a vast range. So, you know, just with those in place, it makes it more secure. So in the future, really, if organizations want to secure themselves more thoroughly, they should really consider implementing IP6 on the inside too, not just on the WAN side.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Ray. I know you take time out of your day in between teaching to do these, so really appreciate your time.
I'm always glad to do these.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for your fantastic questions and your engagement. It always makes these so much more fun when we have so many awesome questions come in as things are going on. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. If you have questions that come up later, please hit up our social media team, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. You know, let's make them earn their paychecks. You know, go ahead, ask them questions, and they'll get the answers for you. Again, just to reiterate, you will receive the recording of this presentation in about a week. It will be sent to the email you used to register. You can see here, we want you to save a little money your next course with GK. So use either one of those codes to get 25% off your next course with Global Knowledge. And again, please continue to check out globalknowledge.com for additional free resources like white papers, articles, and fantastic webinars like this. So thank you again for your attendance. And Ray, thank you again for the awesome presentation.
Thank you all.
Everyone, stay safe. Have a great day.
Thank you. Stay safe out there, everyone.